Hey y'all, I'm just glad that you guys are able to decide to tune in with me today, whether it's morning, evening, or afternoon. I'm just glad that you decided to turn Vibing with E on because today, the vibe of the day is all about moving on. I know y'all probably wondering, like, why do you have the first real episode based on moving on? And let's just say this, well, my opinion when it comes to moving on from things that you have been used to, it sucks. You know, when you have to just move on from it. Moving on is one of the biggest, hardest things to do, no matter what it is. It sucks so bad. Moving on from someone or something can trigger you, but it's like that's just how it goes. Or as they say, that's just how the cookie crumbles. Moving on from a toxic situation or person is most definitely a big step within impacting in your life. Like, I had to learn the hard way of moving on from someone within a situation that I didn't want to, but it was just like, as you get older, sis, let it go. From that moment, I finally realized that I had to move on so I could live for me and feel better. Because once you have that burden on you, it can hurt you, maybe sometimes trigger you even more, especially if it's impacting a person. Like, for example, a lot of people be in relationships and they feel as though, like, from the beginning, in the beginning stage, it's always so good because it's always good vibes, good energy. Like, you're getting what you're supposed to give. The person is giving you what they're supposed to give. But not only just in relationships, it happens in friendships too. Like in the beginning, when you meet a girl or a boy and y'all become really close within a friendship, y'all just like vibing, like everything is good. It's you, sis, bro, whatever, y'all just good until one day a situation happens between y'all and you work it out, and let each other know, like, okay, this cannot happen again. However, it starts to happen again, which turns into a very toxic situation that leads you to feel like, is it worth fighting for? Or is this gonna like mess me mentally and physically up? And that's what I'm all about. I'm all about my mental. I cannot and I will not let nobody mess with my mental, because when somebody is trying to mess up your mental, baby, let it go. Like, let that situation go. Let that person go. Even like a situation too, like even if it's a job, school, sports, whatever you're passionate in, sometimes that could be a toxic situation from the point where you just have to let go. To the point where you just have to exit yourself from being in this situation, because it's like, I've seen and heard a lot of stories from a lot of people saying that things that was so toxic, that was so hard for them, it triggered them to just losing it all, like from losing their self, losing the people around them. And that's another thing too that can cause a lot of problems when a toxic situation or person gets involved. The people that's around you, that care for you the most and that sees this going on, they want you to do better. And at times, yes, it is hard to even try to do better, because at times you feel like the people around you are jealous. It just depends on the situation and who it is. But at times, me personally, I know how I am. If I feel as though my friend or my family member or whoever, I feel like they're in a situation where as though they need to fix it before it gets out of hand, I'd be like, look, sis, bro, like, you need to handle this now before it gets into a toxic situation that leads people into only one thing: violence or going back and forth on the internet. And that's very toxic. Going back and forth on the internet is just like one of the most craziest things that I would say, because the internet is just like, I feel like it's a place where anybody could be anybody. Like, I could be E today and then try to act like Beyonce the next day, knowing that's not me, you know? And that's just how the cookie crumbles. So I'm not even gonna target those type of things, because it's just like, that's what people does. That's what they want to do. But I always just say to myself, like, good vibes only. I can't deal with that negativity. Because once it turns negative, it gets toxic. And nobody likes a toxic situation. I feel as though, like, once you get older, like, in your 20s, like, once you hit your 20s, I feel like that's it. Like, you don't want no toxic. You don't want it. Like, me personally, like, yeah, I'm in my 20s, and I do not tolerate any toxic stuff. None of that. Because it's just like, when you have a lot riding on you and a lot that you want to do for yourself, your focus is all in that. And that's just how I am. Like, I go to school, I work 2 jobs, I have the podcast now. And so that's my only concerns. It's just those 4 main things: school, my 2 jobs, and my podcast, Yes, at times I know that can even get toxic, because it's like, okay, I have to study for this, make sure I upload this, make sure I go to work at this job on time, make sure I clock in, and make sure I tell this job I will come at this time. Stuff, it does become toxic. But the number one thing that I tell people that makes me be on track and everything is be organized. Get a daggone planner. It's gonna help. Put it in your phone. Like, it works. So you don't have to have these toxic situations where you feel so drained, where you feel like, oh my gosh, is this really happening? I'm going insane, type shit. You don't want that. So nevertheless, like, I just feel like this situation, this topic, this vibe really just hit to me, because when you move on from things, it can either be a good or a bad outcome, especially when it comes to moving on from things that you're too old for. Like, I know some people that used to party so much, like every night they partying. They got older, they like, I can't do this no more. I can't do this no more because it's not me. And then they look at, I remember one time I was talking to this person, they was like, yeah, I used to party all the time. Then when I got older, and now I'm looking at how the new generation is this, they was like, I can't do it no more because, one, I'm not built like that no more. Two, it's very, very, very tricky to put your trust in people, because people are doing all types of crazy stuff out here that's leading people to be in situations where it gets so sad that you just can't do it no more. Like, you can't do it no more. And you don't want to be in those type of situations where it messes you up for good. Like, all it takes is one time for you to be out or doing something, and it messes up and it triggers you. Trust me, it's like, wow, did this just happen? Oh my gosh, I don't want to do this no more. Type. From a bad perspective point of view, you can say. On a good note of moving on, it's just like moving on to something that you've been manifesting, that you finally got out the mud. And this is how I feel with this podcast, because it took me a while, a good while, to even do this for real. Like, I remember before the new year even hit, a friend of mine, we were on FaceTime, and she was just like, let's make a vision board. I'm like, a vision board? I made a vision board before, and my vision board when 11th grade had so much stuff on there. A little bit of that stuff I did, a little bit of that stuff I was like, I'll do it one day, and I just said, forget it. But this vision board that I did for 2023, I'm really doing it. Like, I had the podcast on there. It's a lot of things that I had. Well, not a lot. I'll say like probably like a good 9 to 10 pictures on there to keep it short, keep it simple. Because like I mentioned, 11th grade, I had probably like 20 pictures on there, and half of that stuff I didn't do, or said forget it. So moving on with that, like being able to just get the ball rolling with this, it just excites me, because this is what I've been dreaming for. This is all I ever wanted. And yes, I do support other podcasters as well, and just listening to them every time, like when I'm at school, at work, in the gym, or just at home just doing nothing, or maybe doing laundry and washing dishes or whatever, I listen to them, and I was just like, wow. If they can do it, I can do it. With their busy life too, I could do it too. Find time, make time, do what I could do. It's like you never know what you're capable of doing. Just once you move on from something or someone, don't let something or someone hold you back from moving forward. Don't move backwards. And that's what I always also tell myself, like, the goal is to move forward, don't go backwards. Such as like with things in the past, like you can't bring the past into the present, and if you bring it into the future, it's going to mess up what you really had set on, or what God has set for you. So that even if that impacts people, certain little things I used to do in the past, I can't bring it into the present now, and I'm not going to bring it into the future, because that's going to even, you don't know what type of outcome it's going to get. But if it was a bad, toxic, not so good situation or person, oh, I'm leaving you where you at, you know? And moving on, and that's one of the many things people fail to realize too at times. When you move on, you don't have to explain yourself. That's what I feel like. That's the number one thing. Like, once you move on, you should not have to explain yourself on why you moved on. You did what you did because you did it for you. And a lot of people just be like, oh my gosh, they moved on from me, or they moved on from that situation. They don't deal with me no more. Da, da, da. Sis, bro, they had to move on because that was from them. Like, everyone deals with things in many different ways. Like, maybe it's healthy or it's not in the long run for them. It's just that moving on is a step of growth. Like, that's just one of the many things I feel like is growth. Once you move on from something or someone, or you have been manifesting to move to a situation, move from a situation, or move on up from a situation, that's a sign of growth. No matter if it was a short-term, long-term goal, that's what you wanted to do. And moving on does not happen overnight. Like, things do not happen overnight. It takes time, it takes patience for everything to happen for you. Like, it takes a lot of time for some people to get certain stuff done. Like, going to school, for some people, they go in their 20s, maybe drop out, go back in their 30s. But me personally, I feel like school has no limit on it, especially when it comes to college or trade school or wherever, getting your GED or whatever. It has no limit. The goal that the main priority, forget the goal. Well, the goal and the priority is somewhat the same, whatever I guess you could say in this case, is that you did it. And you did it for you. Even if back then you couldn't do it, you manifested to move on to, okay, in the future or this time, I'm going to get this done. And I'm going to get this done for me. You know? Certain people just do not understand why people do the things they do. And it triggers me sometimes, like, why can't you just be happy for that person? And at times I see why people do not tell people their plans right away, because one, people either try to steal it to move on what they got, or two, they don't support you. And I'm big on support. So I say this to say, leaving y'all on this note today, on this episode of vibing. The vibe of the day is moving on. Whatever you do, sis or bro, do it for you. If you have to move away from a situation or a person or anything that involves you to move on, do it. Do it. Do it right now. Like, start that plan. Start it off. Start that blueprint off. Start it off. Start it off. Because at the end of the day, your mental matters. At the end of the day, you gotta think, what's good for you? What's good for me? Who's good for me? What's not good for me? Where's gonna be good for me? What's not gonna be good? Where's not gonna be good for me? You have to ask yourself them five questions, like who, when, why, what, and how. I think I messed up, but oh well. But y'all know what I'm saying. But yes, like, you just really, really, really have to think about you. So as I mentioned, as I leave here on this note with y'all, today's vibe is moving on, and I hope that this episode today will have an impact onto somebody, because it's going to work. Trust me, it's going to work. I manifest this on myself, and it did. And I'm happy. I'm happy now. I'm calm. I figured out ways how to deal with my situation, and trust me, it's going to work. Only thing you got to do is just start. That first step is moving on. But nonetheless, I hope you have an amazing day. I hope you stay hydrated, because it is summertime. Have a good time while you're outside or at work, whatever you're doing. But most of all, stay blessed. And yeah, I see y'all next time. Y'all will hear from me next time. Peace.